Welcome to the Mystic Fool. I'm Martin Worth, and this is the Mystic Fool.
So I've spoken about entities being energetic points of consciousness. We spoke about, you could probably term most things from relationships through to individuals as an entity. Even a business is an entity. But on another level, each entity lives within its own dimension of time. So I'd like to talk about dimensions. I want to talk about dimensions not from a point of view of physics. We're not talking about up, down, left, right, forward, backwards. We're not talking about, the dimension of time, so to speak. So I'm not talking about it from a scientific point of view. I'm talking about dimensions from an energetic point of view. Even when we look out with our eyes and we're looking at a certain frequency of light, and the different frequencies give us the different colours, and that visible spectrum of the light bandwidth is such a narrow spectrum when you've got infrared and ultraviolet and all sorts of other light wave frequencies that we can't even comprehend with our eyes, yet you will feel those with your body. There's a lot of talk about ascension frequencies and people having ascension frequency syndromes like fuzzy-headedness, tiredness, all these sorts of things. And yeah, it's a real thing. If we're receiving energy in at a different level than what we are used to, then of course our body will respond accordingly and try to attune to those particular frequencies. It's kind of like, when we had the recent pandemic, how some people were saying that, there's a flu outbreak every time there is a change in radio frequency technology. And I don't know whether this is true or not, but apparently the Spanish flu, which was a pretty big deal back then, absolutely, coincided with the inception of radio waves. And you can track through that each release of radio technology, 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, apparently each time there was some sort of mass type flu, maybe not a pandemic, but a mass flu outbreak of some type or another. When radio frequencies are flying through the air, hey, they're going to affect you one way or another, So what's this got to do with dimensions? Okay. Each of those frequencies is in its own energetic dimension. Okay? And some of those energetic dimensions we can't actually physically feel, but we can feel the effects of them. Okay? So here we are, whether you're thinking about radio frequencies, whether you're thinking about tuning your television, like back in the old days, you used to have a dial to tune your television, which would switch you up to the different frequencies. Radios had a dial on them and even had a little indicator that you could, as you turn the dial, the indicator would move up through the different frequencies. Some of you younger people may not actually have seen that, but it's true. Because each radio station operates on a different frequency. And each of those different frequencies is within itself a dimension. You had the dimension of ABC radio. You got the dimension of, FM 104 and FM 105. You don't... If you don't want to listen to FM 105, you tune into FM 104. So you're tuning into a different frequency, which in itself is a whole realm of different music, different DJs. It's a different dimension. Okay. So where am I going with this? Right there, where you are sitting right now, listening to this podcast. You are on a particular frequency. You, Mother Earth, everything around you is vibrating at a particular frequency. Just like a radio, you're picking up the frequency of those things around you that are within the bandwidth of the frequency within which you're resonating. I'll put it in dimensional terms. Everything you see around you is resonating at the frequency of the dimension within which you are resonating. We here on planet Earth all living within a particular dimension, a particular frequency. You know, call it 4D, if you like, the fourth density. Well, there's a first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, etc. density as well. And just as all of the radio stations can exist upon a radio, or television stations upon a television, all of those exist in the same place on that radio, depending on what frequency you tune it to. And all of the dimensions, past, present and future, all of the dimensions exist within the same space as you do now, except they're resonating at different frequencies. If you could change up your frequency to the frequency of the next density, shall we call it, the next dimension, then you would see a world that was quite different to the world that we have here, that we can notice in this fourth density, as people call it. If you lowered your frequency to a lower frequency dimension, then you would sense a world that is completely different to the world that you're sensing now. So dimensions exist within the same space, yet at different resonant frequencies. Interesting, hey? So when we talk about being a multi-dimensional being, which we each are, we operate or can operate in different dimensions. Let's call them side bands. There's a resonant frequency of this particular dimension. Yet either side there is an upper and a lower sideband of frequency that we can attain, yet still remain within this particular dimensional construct. The upper level frequency of this dimension is that frequency of love that is coming through, of learning unconditional love. And within this dimension, I do not personally think it's possible to master unconditional love, but we can certainly come close to it. At the other level of sideband, the lower sideband of this dimension is the dimension of anger, hate. Between those two sidebands of the lower sideband of what we might call evil, if you want to put it in a blunt word, and the upper sideband of what we call love and light, we're all oscillating somewhere between those two polarities. Now, should you choose to oscillate at the lower sideband, then you're oscillating at a frequency that is closely resonant to the frequency of the dimension closest to ours that is a lower dimension. A dimension perhaps, I'll use loose words here, a dimension perhaps where demons may exist. Low frequency energies, low frequency entities that do not have your best interests at heart. This dimension can be accessed through, shall we call them, evil deeds. Can be accessed also through occult practices, black magic, ritual. And once you step to the depths of that dimension and you start to impinge upon the lower dimension, you start to step into the game of the lower dimension. And this is where you could become jumped by an entity from a lower dimensional realm. And these are called interdimensional entities. And I'll be talking about them in more depth in another podcast. At the upper end of the spectrum, you're resonating at a level of love and light as much as we possibly can within this dimension, within this construct. And at that upper level, you're able to raise your frequency to a point where you can communicate with the upper level dimension and contact, spirit guides. Some people call them angels. So within this dimension, within this thin bandwidth of vibration, then there's a choice to oscillate, to be at either end of this dimension, or of course to be in the middle, sitting on the fence. I guess the thing to know here is that just like tuning a radio up through the different frequencies, the vibration to which you choose to attune yourself to is the vibration that you are going to oscillate at. I've spoken about entities and how entities are an energetic focal point, and we all know that within this dimension you can resonate at higher or lower or different frequencies and attract different people, different events and different things into your life. Well, within the middle range, that's all cool and that's all fun and games. But if you start to resonate at the more lower end, then you may find yourself bringing through these energies called interdimensional entities. Yes, so when we say we are a multi-dimensional being living within a multi-dimensional world, from the analogy of the radio station tuning, you can see how this world could be multi-dimensional. Depending on what frequency bandwidth reality is tuned to, then there are different dimensions within the same time-space continuum which are resonating at a different frequency, and therefore a little bit like layers, I guess. They exist contemporaneously in this same space. From a point of view of you being a multidimensional being, you are spirit, which is a different dimension to you are physical, which is a different dimension to your thoughts, which is a different dimension to your emotions. So there's so many aspects of you as an individual, and some of those dimensions of you are quite easy to understand. The physical, of course, it's very easy to understand. It's our vehicle within which we we navigate this dimensional world. Thoughts are easy to understand, but you can't hand me a thought, yet you believe it exists. Thought is a different dimension to physical. Emotions are a different dimension, again, to physical. However, more closely associated to the physical than the mental dimension, because emotions are a reaction to the physical environment as much as they are a reaction to the mental dimension of you, to your thoughts. Then there's the spiritual dimension of you, which is for most people harder to imagine or to connect with. And on a level of frequency, I guess the body is the lowest frequency of you, possibly, at least within this analogy it is. The emotions are the next level. Thoughts are the next level, and then spiritual the next level of vibrational frequency of you. So when we meditate and put ourselves into a higher frequency mental state, leaving the emotions and the body behind, so to speak, we can slip through that wormhole to the dimension of spirit. We can attune ourselves to the dimension of spirit, bearing in mind, of course, that all these dimensions are dimensions of you. Therefore, you have access to these dimensions. And as you raise your frequency to the frequency of spirit through meditation, you can then access the realms of spirit. And here we're talking the astral realms, the realms of spirit guides, the realms of collective consciousness, of the Akashic records, of all knowledge through all time and space. It's where we contact our intuition. It's where we make contact with those higher, for want of a better word, those higher aspects of our nature. The clairs, clairvoyance, clairsentience, clairaudience, claircognition. So this is the multidimensional nature of you.
Yeah, just a recap on this one. I'm sorry if it was a bit noisy because it was actually recorded in the studio and it was raining on the tin roof. But yeah, that upper sideband that I spoke about, I just wanted to add in here that the upper sideband is where we connect with spirit, where we connect with our higher self, our higher nature, not just with spirit guides, but with all beings of light who have mastered unconditional love and who love us unconditionally. Yeah. Thanks, I enjoyed this one. And please post comments below or send me an email to themysticfool@martinworth.com. I will reply. I'd love to hear your feedback and also any points that you would like me to cover again, or other topics you'd like me to talk about. So yeah, be well, lots of love, I wish the best for you, and yeah, I'll catch you next time on The Mystic Fool. See ya.